मानव जब जोड़ लगाता है, पत्थर पानी बन जाता है। सच है विपत्ति जब आती है, कायर को ही दहलाती है। शूरमा नहीं विचलित होते, क्षण एक नहीं धीरज होते, विघ्नों को गले लगाते हैं, कांटों में राह बनाते हैं। तो चलिए इन्हीं जोश और जुनून से भरी हुई पंक्तियों के साथ आज हम सब इस भव्य कार्यक्रम का आरंभ करते हैं और अपने कर्तव्य से इस आयोजन को एक सफल रूप प्रदान।
बिना किसी विलंब के मैं हमारे सम्माननीय अतिथि लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल राज शुक्ला सर से अनुरोध करती हूँ कि वो कृपया मंच पर आएं और अपने ज्ञान से हमें प्रबुद्ध करें।
The Civil Services Society, can you hear me? Of the Kirori College, all those of you that have gathered here for what I am told is the annual Fest Junoon 6.0, members of the faculty, students, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Namaskar, Jai Hind. May I begin by thanking Lakshita, she is the only person I know here. She has been in touch with me and Kartavya for enabling my presence here this afternoon. You know, the only exam I gave in life was the exam for the National Defence Academy. It so happened that I passed in my first attempt, and so the only college I know of is National Defence Academy. It is a college of a very different kind, and one of my abiding regrets in life is that I never had the opportunity of going through these colleges like Kirori, where you have so much freedom and India, the first thing it does is it kills all your freedoms. So whenever I get an opportunity, I always look forward to coming to colleges and interacting with the young minds. And similarly today, I do hope that I make the most of the opportunity in the invite. I've been asked to speak for about half an hour. So somebody said wisdom. I don't have wisdom, but yes, I have experience. So I'll try and share my experiences with you. And thereafter, I'll gladly take on any questions, anything that you wish to ask me. So the subject before us today is the role of civil servants in the labyrinth of modern governance, with particular reference to the metrics of political neutrality and administrative efficiency. So let me try and expand on this stated subject while reinterpreting the metrics in a manner that I think are more relevant to the emerging contours of the debate. While the fundamentals remain the same, there are new layers and perspectives that I would like to emphasize. So here are a few key postulates to frame this conversation. One, a competent, efficient and talented civil service is a sine qua non for modern governance. We need the very best. Our civil servants, after all, are carrying forward the legacy of giants and pioneers like Subhash Chandra Bose, Satyendranath Tagore, he was the brother of Rabindranath Tagore, Annie Ranjan Malhotra, First Lady IAS officer, a gentleman called Sukumar Sen, who in 1951, he was the Chief Secretary of West Bengal, and he was asked to double up as the Election Commissioner of India, at a time when 85% of Indians were unable to read or write. And that gentleman with a small band of IAS officers enabled these 85% of Indians to exercise their electoral franchise using the ingenuity of mere symbols. Also think of the great logistic challenges there in 1951. In those very underdeveloped times, India was rather poor. So what a laudable accomplishment all these people have actually done when you look back. Today you have 3 election commissioners and a mighty election machine, or ye jo sare sajjan hain, all these things. So we have a great legacy. So the 1,000 odd civil servants that we select every year must be those with outstanding qualities of head, mind and heart. Not only head, but mind and heart. Deeply empathetic, to quote the Honorable Prime Minister, enablers and facilitators, defenders of the rights of the people, men and women with a wide-angle view of the world, bound by an ethos of unflinching ethics, an esprit de corps, which I may point out is very different from an aggregation of turf warriors, and a zest for public service, all driven by an indomitable spirit. Now you might say that these are rather impossible, lofty ideals, a pretty high bar. Well, yes, but isn't that what good meritocracy is all about? If India is going to become this big Bharat and all our dreams, we just have to have a very good civil service. China, incidentally, is an autocracy, all right, something that we would never want to be, but it is a meritocracy, which we may like to be extremely conscious and cognizant about. Look at this, President Xi. He got, the current president of China, got his membership of the Chinese Communist Party in his 11th attempt. 10 times he was found unsuitable. President Xi came about. Every year I am told membership of the CCP, which is the ticket to power and prosperity in China, much like perhaps the civil services are here in India, is open to only the top 2 students coming out of high school in as big a country as China. That is what competition and meritocracy is. So that is the kind of premium nations place on talent. We are baat kar rahe the bahar. China has, got this famous 1,000 talents plan. And this 1,000 talents plan has been leveraged by its scientists and its bureaucrats. What kind of scientists? Nobel laureates, winners of the Turing medal. And they have powered China's technological miracle. Today in 44 leading technologies, emerging critical technologies and their subsets, in 37 who leads? Not the USA, China. This is the kind of, as I said, premium that nations place on talent. So that is the first point. We need a competent, talented, diligent civil service. To the position of the civil services in the Indian democratic frame is both salient and sacrosanct. By way of recall, independent India's first Home Minister, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, was pointed in affirming the critical role of the civil services amidst many voices to the contrary. The argument then was that they had been serving the British and they were not quite loyal to the Indian cause, so we should disband the civil service. This is when Sardar Sahab intervened in the Constituent Assembly debate on 10th October 1949. He said, "The Union will go." He was referring to the Union of India. "You will not have a united India if you do not have a good All India service. One which has independence to speak its mind. The Constitution is meant to be worked by a ring of services which will keep the Constitution intact." This is what Sardar Patel said. We all remember Sardar Patel as this political icon of united India. And this icon pays tribute to the civil servant, emphasizing and acknowledging that the All India civil services lie at the heart of the concept of a united India. So that is the value of the civil service. And the wisdom of what Sardar Sahab said, as we shall see, has only grown in equity over the years. Now if we turn to the India of today and its aspirational journey towards a Vikasit, Samrit, Sudhir or Surakshit Bharat, developed, prosperous, strong and secure, in such a paradigm, a talented and competent civil service will play an even more critical, if not indispensable, role. Since this aspirational journey is audacious, ambitious and challenging, and will need to be undertaken in a framework of intense geopolitical competition, we are not the only country competing. Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, China, all have similar visions. So it's going to be undertaken in a framework of intense geopolitical competition. The key instrument of delivery, the civil service, will have to step up its game by an order of magnitude in terms of speed, quality and scale. तो ये राहें जो हैं आसान नहीं हैं. That in fact is the whole logic of Amrit Kaal. We must make haste lest we grow old before we get rich. We cannot merely plod along. This is the challenge before the civil service. The civil services therefore have to go beyond merely administrative efficiencies, which is the subject of the debate. And I am saying it is far beyond that. The civil services will have to think through and deliver. So both thought leadership and deliverance are equally critical attributes for the civil services to embellish. See, I'll emphasize the ideation aspect, why it is so important. You look at China. The normal argument extended in India is that, what can we do? We are a democracy. We cannot implement in a manner that China does. That may be a fact. But why should China be ahead in ideation? China is ideating ahead of the world. 1979, their premier, Delhi, said, so what if the Middle East is oil? We have rare earths, and they begin their attention to rare earths and its processing. Today they need rare earths. And rare earths defines this era of this industrialization 4.0, your ability to process. So, as Kishore Mehmawani says, he poses this question and we must answer it honestly. He says, closed society, open minds. Open society, closed minds. So the execution part can be an issue. Why should we lag in ideation? So, both thought leadership and relevance are equally critical attributes for the civil services to embellish. They will have to deliver on a wide range of issues, both in the ideation and execution spaces, across a vastly enlarging canvas. Health, education, the economy, trade, law, business, commerce, transforming not only the ease of doing business but also ease of living, socio-economic equity, culture, climate change, green energy, infrastructure, policing, the project of India's technological transformation, from conducting free and fair elections to managing drones for the cross-pollination of crops, and if this was not enough, foreign and strategic policy, national security, etc., etc. So the breadth and depth of the canvas is challenging, exciting, and staggering. Absolutely staggering. And all this is happening in a time of extraordinary and unprecedented change in terms of the complex geopolitical paradigm. See how conflict is moving. With Ukraine, what happened over the last 24 hours in West Asia, what's going to happen in Taiwan, the old problems around our LAC, the technological zoom, military gallop, and governance in terms of R&D and innovations, the structural challenges. Let's look at the issue of supply chain statecraft, for instance. Let me give you one example so that you don't think I'm only using bombastic language. So take the chip, for instance. From sand to finished product, semiconductors, I'm told, the process transcends 17 countries, 70 nations. So you need to plan years in advance. What parts of the value chain do we master? How do we ensure that the arduous and elongated supply chain is crisis resilient? We saw what happened in the pandemic. So these are complicated questions. They need assiduous planning in statecraft. And I'm just referring to one item in this whole world of supply chain statecraft. There are environmental challenges, cultural challenges, astounding developments in intelligence, compute, physics, chemistry, biotech, nanotechnology, and metallurgy. Some scholars are of the view that we are in the midst of the most profound changes in recorded history. I'm emphasizing recorded history, with a lot of what was once regarded as science fiction metamorphosing into plausible futures. So look at it, not only the canvas, also the velocity of change. The range of responsibilities of the civil services in the decades to come, therefore, will only grow exponentially. For the hungry and the free-spirited amongst you, there will be opportunities galore. We will need civil servants who have a long-term vision, an eye for the future, refined worldviews, an international visage, at the same time a deep understanding of our tradition and culture. There's also clarity of purpose, officers that are benevolent, learned, eloquent, creative, imaginative, agile, fleet-footed, and resolute. With bad laws and good civil servants, it will still be possible to govern. Said Otto in this mark. But with bad civil services, bad civil servants, even the best laws cannot help. So that is how central the civil service is to the nation's rubric, fabric, and futures. An agglomerate of talent and technology, all steeped in the Indian tradition. The key issue, therefore, is to examine ways and means to repurpose and empower the civil services to stay on top of the game. In terms of, as I said, the steadily expanding canvas, there's also the sheer velocity of change. We know this mission Karmyogi, which is there, for upgrading the skills of civil servants right through their life cycle. In my view, that needs to be taken to the next level. There are many other things that can be done. Just let me point to one more, which is that while the civil service selection is as meritocratic as it can get, and I've been in the UPSC for a year long, I can assure you that the process is as fair as it possibly can be. The one ossified HR practice that we need to tackle in this civil service is that which does not punish bad performers and therefore ends up punishing good performers as well. So these are some of the kind of changes that you need. I was pointing to you the sheer velocity of change. Let me elaborate this with an example, one which is currently in the news, and that is the huge challenges in the domain of artificial intelligence. How prepared are we, for example, to leverage deal with the transformational impact of artificial intelligence? Look at the sheer intellectual power of AI. Einstein, I am told, had an IQ of 160. ChatGPT-4 has an IQ which is assessed of 155. ChatGPT-6, 2 years from now, will have an IQ of 1550. Most known thinkers in this domain say that AI will be 1 billion times, and I reread this 4 or 5 times, billion times by 2037, and even that timeline has now been revised to 2033. This is the transformation that is taking place. The Industrial Revolution, people say, helped mankind overcome the limitations of its mechanical part, our hands and our legs. So till the Industrial Revolution, I am told, you had progress in small veins and crests. In the Industrial Revolution, the progress became like a hockey stick, almost 75%. And as a consequence, you had generation of surplus incomes for the first time, and people moved from mere subsistence to surplus income, so on and so forth. And the principal beneficiaries of the Industrial Revolution were the West. India got it's virtually bypassed by the Industrial Revolution, and we haven't been able to recover from that setback till today. So this is the impact of these revolutions. Now the AI revolution, people say, is going to bring about an abundance of intelligence. The aggregate of our carbon, brains, silicon, AI and quantum intelligence. Quantum supremacy, if it comes about, which also most scientists say is around the corner. They say that a problem which the fastest supercomputer takes 10,000 years to solve will get solved in 200 seconds. Now just see what the aggregation of intelligence is going to do. So the AI is going to be even more game-changing than the Industrial Revolution. We must begin to prepare for it in all these myriad ways. It will create a new set of strategic haves and have-nots. It will determine the destinies of nations for the next 100 to 200 years. Look at the economic opportunity in AI. People say that the economic opportunity in AI alone is $15 trillion by 2030 and a staggering $100 trillion by 2050. If you don't invest in AI, these dreams of fifth largest and third largest economy will go, to my understanding. They will go. $100 trillion is the size of the global economy today. And that is what just AI is going to fetch you. There are other challenges, those of Antodaya, social equity. We have to improve our HDI, which is just below 0.6, take it at least to even a 0.8 and above. Per capita income, we are what, $2,500 US, it needs to go to 12,000, 13,000 US. Look at the issue of online trust. By the end of this year, they say, you will not be able to distinguish between a deep fake and what is real, if it is not happening already. By next year, they say you will not be able to trust any online information. Bloomberg, that very famous magazine, a recent article said that 70% of the articles were written by machines, which is that we are being manipulated in what we think. Now I am putting all these challenges to you before you to say that your generation, the civil servants amongst you and those in other professions, these are the mountains that future civil servants and people like you will have to climb. And if we don't climb them with planning, forethought and some degree of competence, this dream of Viksit Bharat may just get swept away. So these are the challenges, the velocity of change. Now in a democracy, in the broadest terms, the executive is composed of a two-tiered hierarchy. The elected political master in the top layer and the bureaucratic agents below. Now these agents come from the civil services, the technological leadership, the military leadership, leadership in science, academia, general administration, etc. Now, the political class carries the onus of developing policy, helped, of course, by the bureaucratic agent. The bureaucratic agent helps, but the political class determines policy. The political class gives political direction and provides strategic guidance, while the bureaucracies are tasked to execute and ensure efficient delivery, acting always in lockstep with the constitutional and legal framework. Now, that is the world of utopia, that's the way it should be. In the course of such delivery, it is inevitable that there will be tension between the bureaucratic agent and the political master. There will be differences, there will be tensions. Much of the time, in my view, such tension is healthy and productive. It's not always destructive. Much of the time, it is healthy and productive. There is purposeful dialogue between the two agencies in the spirit of that wonderful coinage in Hindi which says, "Asehmati ka sahas or sehmati ka vivek." The courage to disagree, certainly, but what is equally important is the wisdom to agree. It's in this spirit that this dialogue takes place. And when it happens in that manner, that tension is healthy and productive. It is often creative. At times it is non-productive and only sometimes destructive. So in this whole interaction, which is, the principal subject of discussion here between the political master and the bureaucrat, in my view, there is a range here of the good, the bad and the ugly. It is the need of the hour. It is in the interest of both the political master and the bureaucratic agent to come together in some jugalbandi of sorts to deliver conjointly on the new challenges that I outlined. Look at the challenges I put before you in terms of canvas, in terms of the velocity of change. So instead of wasting time bickering between each other, we've got simply to come together to deliver on these challenges. These challenges that are characterized by great enormity and equal complexity. It would make eminent sense for the two, the political master and the bureaucratic agent, to come together in pursuit of the challenge and the excitement of achievement and delivery, for there is so much to be accomplished, so much at stake. We are also perhaps witnessing a change in the grammar and vocabulary of work design and collaboration between the political master and the bureaucratic agent. In the past, the perception, true or false, was that while the politician was vile, corrupt and uninterested, it was the civil servant who was the constitutional check on wrongdoing and a conscious keeper of sorts. That may be true to a certain extent. But what happened was that the obsession with this check and balance paradigm became so high, one being a check on the other, that one witnessed a huge sense of drift, gross neglect, and deficits insofar as the quotient of delivery is concerned. So delivery became subservient, and I've seen this in my own life. So let me give you an example from the Ministry of Defence, which I saw intimately. So there was a time when in the Ministry of Defence, everyone operated in these siloed hierarchies. Civil, military, public sector undertakings, DRDO, and of course, the private sector was always taboo. It was absent, absolutely absent. The innovation, energy and enterprise of startups was non-existent. We didn't see it. There was not even the mention of startups. So the conversations were those pertaining to warrant of precedence, who was senior to whom, who would sit where, those battles between the service chiefs and the bureaucracies, battles of turf, pretty wasteful. I have seen the paradigm change. We now see a new grammar and vocabulary. Civil servants, for all the reasons that I have stated, civil servants, defense officers, DRDO, the private sector, startups, academia, IITs, domain specialists are now coming together to deliver in pursuit of these conjoint national security objectives. And there is phenomenal change. Let me give you just one example. There is a startup 114AI which has recently bagged a contract from the US Space Command to develop a tool, AI tool for maritime domain awareness. I would not have thought of this happening 10 years back, and this is just one startup. There are many like this. So the futility of working in that check and balance paradigm and the great wisdom of coming together. Tata, Airbus coming together to challenge the monopoly of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. It will do a great deal of good to Hindustan Aeronautics Limited because competition just wonders. In a consequence of all this, today India is thinking of becoming a defense powerhouse. And why should we be? Today, out of 20 corporate defense majors, 7 are Chinese. If 7 are Chinese, why shouldn't 2 to 3 be Indians? One of these startups will scale up, it will get identified as a national champion and become the Boeing Lockheed of tomorrow. And this is just an example from defense, since I'm familiar from this, about this. Much of this change is happening all across ministries, and it has now to be taken to wider society. A lot more seems to be changing. Just reflect on what I'm telling you. Today, the political master is setting the terms and pace of accomplishment. There was a time when we said he doesn't understand, he is behind us. That is changing. So the term and pace of accomplishment, delivery and change is being set by the political masters, and bureaucracies across domains, civil, scientific, military, technological and administrative, are finding it difficult to keep pace. That is my observation. We could debate it. Insofar as the issue of political neutrality is concerned, the civil servant is trained to be so. He or she is required to maintain such neutrality irrespective of the political color of the government. That is stating the obvious. If you heard of Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw, the great military icon, when he was asked about the apolitical stance of the Indian Army, he said, "We are deeply politically conscious, but consciously not politically conscious." So हम समझते सब हैं, but it's a conscious position to stay above politics, to stay out of politics. Pays. You see what great trouble the Pakistan Army is going through because it abandoned this very wise principle. The position of the civil servant may not be similar because he operates in a far more, shall I say, politically intimate environment, but it is analytics. He or she lies at the heart of political activity. I am talking about the civil servant. He is at the center of the political humdrum. Yet, we expect of him or her a political stance, not only as an institutional imperative, but very often as a personal choice. There was one General Colin Powell, he was the chairman of the American Joint Chiefs of Staff, I think a decade ago, and a very famous general behind the Iraq war and so on and so forth, and a successful one in that. He expounded on this relationship between professionals, civil and military and politicians in this manner, in a very honest manner. He drew a distinction between being a commander in the field. So when you were a commander in the field, everything was straight and narrow, you operated in worlds of black and white. But when it came to being a military bureaucrat in Pentagon, Pentagon is like our South Bloc, Ministry of Defense, he said it is not entirely about the straight and narrow. Here a military bureaucrat has to advance, retreat, bend, compromise, seize your moment. So when it comes to operating in these atmospheres, and I think he's honest, that is what you have to do. But even as you do that, all the way you must retain your honesty of purpose. And in the profession, with experience, you gradually acquire the art, craft and finesse to do your job punctiliously while staying clear of the political embers. This cannot be taught. You learn on the job. And there are consequences both ways. Those of you who wish to embrace politics, you are most welcome. There will be consequences. Those of you who wish to stay apolitical, there are welcome payoffs either way. So I think that is the reality in the real world. To be honest, the compulsion or temptation to cross the line or breach this covenant of being apolitical on account of pressure, inducement or aspiration cannot be denied. It could be either. But as is the case, as I said, across a wide swath of human affairs, the choices that we make have consequences. I recently chanced on the memoirs of the well-regarded IPS officer Srimati Neeram Chandra Borwankar. She rose to be the police commissioner and later DGP prisons, leaving an indelible imprint in those appointments. The book is called Madam Commissioner, The Extraordinary Life of an Indian Police Chief. Do buy it, you will find it very interesting. She speaks of her encounters with corrupt bosses, demolition operations in Dharavi, the most dangerous slum of Asia, the difficulties with politician-appointed SHOs, trysts with realtor lobbies, etc. And she emerges from these challenges untainted and goes on to attain higher vistas of glory. So it is very much possible. Shri Anil Swarup, I'm told here he was here in the morning, a former Core and Education Secretary, in his book entitled Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, recounts in great candor the numerous hazards of the profession. You must read that book. It's a wonderful book. And it gives you a very pragmatic account of the tightrope walking that is expected of a civil servant. I wonder if he told you this, but I must quote him. He says, he's recounting the life of a civil servant. He says, "Mukhtasar si zindagi ki ajab se afsane hain." This life that you choose, that of bureaucracy, it has many strange tales to tell. "Mukhtasar si zindagi ke ajab se afsane hain. यहाँ तीर भी चलाने हैं और परिंदे भी बचाने हैं." So your arrows must be shot, but the targeted birds must be saved as well. So there are many contradictions which will really test your intelligence and skills, but you are all intelligent people. There are other books, and I very strongly recommend reading of biographies. There is nothing, the best instruments of teaching you the nuances, the finesse, which can never be brought out in any lecture or any moral lecture, is these biographies, because they tell you with great truth what happens. Born to Serve by Dr. Yogendra, a very distinguished civil servant. T.N. Session, I read a book by an intimate story by K. Govindan Putti. Governance, the sclerosis that has happened by journalist Arun Shore, do read it. Nice guys finished second week in Nehru. This is, a good book. The title tells you, he says, you can be good, you can be brilliant, enjoy your brilliance, do well in the civil services, but calibrate your ambition. Because if you're a nice guy, you finish second. You may not finish first, but you will be happy. So there are these host of books, as I said, which capture in graphic detail the times and travails of the profession, great insights that help to understand the true nature of the challenge. You see, we all know that in 34 years of service, IAS officer Pradeep Kasni was transferred 71 times. This is also a reality. So I am not suggesting that it is an ideal world out there. What I am saying is that while the waters are choppy, they can be navigated through a combination of sincerity, diligence, wisdom, and a nuanced handling of challenges. Tact is of course useful. It does not mean an abandonment of principle, just as accommodation is not compromise. So you will decipher these things as you go along. It may also not be very accurate to paint the entire political class with one brush. All the problems in India and the world are not because of politicians. Just as in the civil bureaucracy there are officers of varying shades, amongst the political class there are politicians of various inclinations and hues. The question is more one of conjoint outcomes. The wise politician is on the constant lookout for competent and honest officers who could deliver on the host of challenges that I alluded to. Or you look, competent and honest officers, so if you can become really competent and honest, you will make yourself useful to the competition. And I can spare that, on personal experience. May I also point to the wisdom of the political class in this. 2013, I was doing NDC, National Defence College, which is a course consisting of service officers, civil servants, in fact bureaucracies from across the world. A very apolitical kind of gathering. And the late Shri Arun Jaitley, he came to address the course. And somebody asked him a politically loaded question, and I still remember his answer. He answered it in a very politically agnostic way. And he stated, he said that anywhere else I would have answered this differently. But since I am in a political gathering like this, I will answer it like this. So the point that I make is that wise politicians also understand that it is in their own self-interest to keep the services politically. So it is very complex, and therefore you hear, I think Mr. Anil Swarup would have told you, a number of politicians who have been absolutely good to serve. So that is also the reality. It also needs to be underlined that the civil services in India today are competing in some ways for the same talent pool. A pool that is also the source, the fount to drive creative endeavors in business, commerce, finance, tech, the services sector, law, software, entrepreneurship, architecture, etc. This was exactly the point which Mr. Sanyal was making. I think perhaps a bit worded properly, but the talent pool is the same. And just as India needs talent in the civil services, India needs talent in these areas also. So that said, the civil services in India, the way they are structured and the way India is structured, continue to be a magnet for those seeking the opportunity of public service. The prestige, influence and power associated with government, they remain attractive metrics to this day. The government has recently opened up about 100 appointments for lateral induction. And I find a lot of people come. A lot of people, so say appointments like GS Green Energy, GS Digital Diplomacy, Director, Digitization, they are not open to government employees. We have a whole lot of applicants. So I am saying the government continues to be attractive. Power continues to be an aphrodisiac, sometimes with deleterious effects. I am from UP, तो हमारे UP में कहा जाता था कि जो DN से ज़्यादा DN के ड्राइवर का दिमाग खराब है. So civil servants must guard against that. It is very important to stay grounded in life. Never let power get to your head. We all need a Birbal in our lives. Somebody who speaks truth to power. So Birbal was this Hindu courtier and a predominantly Muslim court. And why Akbar liked him was because of his ability to speak truth to power. He would often remind Akbar and tell him कि तुमसे पहले जो शख्स यहाँ नदीम था, उसे भी अपना खुदा होने का यकीन था. So, moment what shall I say, power gets into your head or this, I can tell you that is the first step for your downfall. We must also not forget that we are truly in the age of cross-pollination and talent fusion. The government and civil services will need to partner with external talents in academia, business, the entrepreneurial class, startups, domain specialists, men and women from the world of research, innovation and national security to power the Sudhir Surakshit Bharat project that I spoke about. We have a wonderful metaphor in our civilization and wisdom which puts it very well. Why we should have no silos. So it goes something like this. It says, we must use centers of learning, Saraswati, use their talent here for innovation to create wealth. So centers of learning will nurse Lakshmi, and some of that Lakshmi must be used to nurse your instruments of power. So Mishran hai Saraswati, Lakshmi or Durga ka, that should be the guiding principle, to frame the debate and future of India. While for very valid reasons the mantra of less government, more governance must become stronger, the power and purpose of a reformed, focused, driven government enterprise must not be lost on us. Over the last decade, the government machinery is delivering on numerous fronts, often with unparalleled excellence and brilliance. Tell me terror. Today we are on the top of terror. There was a time जब रोज बम फटता था और हम कहते थे साहब this is a raucous democracy. तो फटने बंद हो गए. DPI. The Americans say that the DPI is one of the best instruments that they have seen. This is public infrastructure. Social delivery schemes, institutional reform in the domain of national security. I won't bore you with it, but these are the boldest, most ambitious reforms I have seen in national security. The great infra boost, our airports, highways, in terms of a technological renaissance. We have begun, we have started late, but the quantum mission, semiconductor mission. Look at G20. The government even done with great, I would say, military precision. So in many areas, now this is the challenge for the private sector. Many areas, government efficiencies are challenging private sector competencies in delivery and execution. So I say this is a new game in town. So our lethargic government, I'm not saying it become perfect, but in many areas it is transformed. And it is challenging the private sector. This is a new game in town, in which the civil servant continues to be both center half and center forward. So, in the Indian system, while the civil servant will continue to be the prima donna, the mantra for success today is neither primacy nor exclusivity of the civil service. So, हम कहते हैं ना कि once you join IAS, you can be Maharajas for the rest of your life. That is no longer a reality. But the smart, sensible, wise civil servants who have the skill to create and leverage these broader partnerships with academia, business. It is these civil servants, in my view, who will really, find success in life. Uh, so let me now, I think I've taken too much time, I just finished in 5 minutes now. So while I have referenced numerous institutional challenges in my talk today, the aspirational civil servants amongst you would have to chart your own unique individual pathways in your lives and in your careers. Nobody can teach you how to, what career to go, all these guidance counselors and all, they have a very limited role to play. My experience has been that you discover what lies in you and what you want to deliver along in life as you go. There are no prescriptions. It is not always easy. As the axiom goes, you cannot enjoy both a strong character and an easy life. The price of one is the other. This is also a fact of life. But in my view, it remains a very exciting journey, the many critiques and pitfalls notwithstanding. The civil services remain an honourable and fulfilling vocation, one that will test your wisdom, resolve and grit. Through my talk, I have made great emphasis on wisdom, vivek as they say in Hindi, and I do feel that it is the higher order virtue that all of you, we all must strive for. It is the secret sauce for success in life, wisdom, vivek, one that distinguishes the men from the boys, success from failure. Wisdom leads to clarity, and clarity is the basis for sound execution. You all have heard of Napoleon? Yes. He was the French emperor. So Napoleon used to write love letters to his wife every day. And the love letters he writes, he says, "Beloved, had I more time, my letters to you would have been shorter." Which means that even in romance, if you have time and you have clarity, your letters will be shorter. So clarity in other domains of life is so important. And you will find it, in my view, that ultimately in life, the really successful men or women are the ones who have clarity. Clarity is a distinct, it is a distinctive feature. So we must try and make sure, as T.S. Eliot said, that wisdom does not get lost in knowledge, and knowledge does not get lost in information. This is currently happening today, if you reflect on it. You know, when we were young, going in school, these pressures were not there. I remember I had a chemistry teacher, we were talking about chemistry, Mr. R.P. Agarwal, and on a Friday evening he would say, "We both हो गई chemistry और Shakespeare पढ़ते." And we would read Shakespeare in our own lazy way, and Monday he would discuss it. And the principal would walk in and say, "Agarwal sahab, क्या हो रहा है?" And she said, "Shakespeare discussed, but I am chemistry." I'm not saying that it should start happening tomorrow, it will not happen. The time is not there, but this was the whole spirit of what I say, a very wide angle education. And in the ultimate analysis, I have no doubt it is that which matters. It is that which matters. You also play heed to this wonderful verse by Padma Shri Nida Fazli, which contains some very useful pointers as to why tenacity is life. In the civil service or anywhere else, you have to be tenacious. You chart your own pathways to success that you cannot afford to ever rest on your laurels. You know, others can inspire you. The Prime Minister may inspire you. You may hope to emulate those that inspire you. But आपकी जो राह है, आपको खुद उसे ढूंढनी होगी. It is particularly relevant to the civil service, for you have to battle, create the change from within the system. So it's a very different kind of battle. So this is what this verse of Nida Fazli, many of you would have heard it, those of you who have not, it's a very good verse to repeat. He says, "Safar mein dhoop to hogi, jo chal sako to chalo." In life, you shall have to bear the heat of the scorching sun. And these are not translations, these are my interpretations of what Bharati are as to say. Sabhi hai bheed mein tum bhi nikal sako to chalo. This journey by itself is one of grim competition, audacious challenge. So आप कोई भी planning नहीं कर लो, कोई भी break ले आओ, these challenges will never go. इधर उधर कई मंजिल हैं, चल सको तो चलो, बने बनाए हैं सांचे जो ढल सको तो चलो. There are many destinations, many paths of travel. You will have to choose the one that suits your own unique genius, and you will discover it gradually. You will discover it gradually. किसी के रास्ते राहें कहाँ बदलती हैं, तुम अपने आप को खुद ही बदल सको तो चलो. The world is not going to change for you, my dear. So don't complain. Adapt, mold, change, be agile and free-footed. I'm not suggesting that you be cunning. You must be smart. The world is not going to change you. यहाँ किसी को कोई रास्ता नहीं देता. मुझे गिरा के अगर तुम संभल सको तो चल सकते. There's no point complaining. These are the realities of life. Be prepared for the rough and tumble of competition. Life is not always fair. Don't complain. It's a fact of life. It will not always be fair. It is not always about the straight and narrow. You will have to simply battle along. यही है जिंदगी कुछ ख्वाब चंद उम्मीदें. इन्हीं खिलौनों से तुम भी बहल सको तो चलो. This is the construct of life, one of multifarious dreams, many aspirations. You choose yours. हर एक सफर को है महफूज. This is brilliant. हर एक सफर को है महफूज रास्तों की तलाश. हिफाजतों की रिवायत बदल सको तो चलो. Everybody is in search of safe constituencies. That one mentor or somebody who will put his hand on his head. और आपकी जिंदगी सफल हो जाएगी. You will look for these safe constituencies. There are benefits in being orderless, colorless, tasteless. You don't wish to take stands. There are benefits. But in my view, true success will always go to those that redefine the very metrics of success. हिफाजतों की रियायत बदल सको तो चलो. And those are the true people who will be successful, and I speak from experience. The bold and the risk-taking. You know, even the ant is what? They always are behind each other. They follow the straight and narrow path. But there is this sentence about ant. It says that the ant that breaks the line is most likely to find new sources of food. So it is this, risk and bold taking. I must conclude with these words of Abraham Lincoln in a famous letter to the headmaster of the school in which his son was studying. This is equally brilliant. Words that ring true with me as I reflect back on my own life and career. It worked for me, it might also work for you. See if it works for you. So what does this letter say? He's writing to the headmaster, about his son. He says he will have to learn, I know, that all men are not just, that all men are not true. But teach him that for every scoundrel there is a hero. I can tell you, very true. That for every selfish politician there is a dedicated hero. Teach him that for every enemy there is a friend. It will take time, I know, but teach him if you can that $1 earned is of far more value than 5 found. Teach him to learn to lose is also to enjoy winning. Steer him away from envy. Teach him the secret of quiet laughter. Let him learn early that the bullies are the easiest to lick. Ignore them. If you have bullies in life, ignore them. They are the biggest commons. Teach him, if you can, the wonder of a book. But also give him time to ponder the eternal mystery of birds in the sky, bees in the sun, and flowers on the green hillside. R.P. Agarwal. Shakespeare Patya. Beyond the Mark Twain was asked, the famous American writer, as to why he was so successful in life. I'm sorry I'm saying this in a college, I should be saying it, but he said, I'm so successful because I took great care never to let my schooling interfere with my education. So the importance of always going beyond the classroom. Back to Abraham Lincoln. Teach him to have faith in his own ideas even if everyone tells him they are wrong. ये जो मोड़ है ना, this one, faith in your own ideas, ये मोड़, ये भी आपकी जिंदगी में आए. I can tell you, इनसे आपको जूझना पड़ेगा, and the choices that you make with regard to this will define, as I said, success and failure. Teach him to be gentle with gentle people and tough with the tough. Try not to give my son the strength not to follow the crowd when everyone is getting onto the bandwagon. Teach him to listen to all men, but teach him also to filter all that he hears on a screen of truth and take only the good that comes through. Teach him, if you can, how to laugh when he's sad. Teach him that there is no shame in tears. Teach him to scoff at cynics and to beware of too much sweetness. And listen to this is a wonderful line. Teach him to sell his brain and brawn to the highest bidder. Talent, yeah, must make full use of it. But never to put a price tag on his heart and soul. You must know when to draw the line. And if you don't, there will be consequences. Teach him to close his ears to a howling mob and to stand and fight if he thinks is right. Treat him gently but do not cuddle him, because only the test of fire makes fine steel. Let him have the courage to be impatient, let him have the patience to be brave. Teach him always to have sublime faith in himself, because then he will always have sublime faith in mankind. This is a big order, but see what you can do. He's such a fine little fellow, my son. So are all of you, dear students. So good luck. We wish you Shubhkamnaएं that you have, success in life. And I will just say this, my generation was told, don't drop the boat. That is what my father told me. Don't upset the system. In hindsight, I think that was bad advice. Your generation, I am sanguine, will rock the world. So thank you very much for your patience.
I request the audience to kindly raise their hands for question and answer session. The panelists will address the question one by one. Kindly maintain the discipline while asking.
So it was wonderful to hear you write being in front of you. And so you outrightly mentioned the perplexed situations or the challenges which we face. But given the context of Kartavya Kal and the challenges which we are still struggling for, just to mention few, the kind of problem which we have with respect to the recent Delhi Chief Secretary and the amendments related to the civil services. At the same time, we have the issue of the no objection certificate from the state, along with the factor of deputation. What different should actually India do to at the same time maintain that perpetual challenges which you have actually mentioned, along with the way we are struggling with these kind of challenges? Thank you.
So if you are referring to something specifically, is that specific to UPSC?
No, in general, like I just mentioned those things as examples.
So if you have any specific issues with UPSC, then address them one by one. So that's a NOC वगैरह की आप बात कर रहे हैं. Are you talking about the general politics?
I'm just talking about when we say that we want to maintain that political neutrality. At the same time, we also expecting us to have that Vikshit Bharat by 2047. How to balance both of them, ensuring that we have to maintain federalism and all that political aspect?
See, these will be challenges in a democracy. These will be issues which will be vigorously contested. Just as there is a viewpoint to the left of the center, there will be a viewpoint to the right of the center. There will be ideologies of the AAP, the BJP, and Congress. There will be there. We are all, cognizant of this. But as I repeatedly made this point, I am not saying that you can escape politics, but you can create a niche for yourself. In the sense that if you say that, listen, I am going to be an honest person, who is going to deliver on issues separated from politics, which is largely that you execute the orders of the government of the day. I mean, that is what the civil services and the armed forces do. So the armed forces is a very heightened state of civilian control, which is the political control. So there the theorists say that the civilian, which is the political master, the civilian has a right to be wrong. The civilian, he is right when he is wrong. Which means that there, the military will put your point, the politician will say what he has to, and at the end of the day you salute and obey. And that's a very high order principle, specifically for the military, so that there is no indiscipline. But in broad terms, the same principle will apply. The politician will, after all, give directions, and you must comply. But in practice, it doesn't work. In practice, the defense minister is very mature. He will carry the service chief. He will speak to the CES, and you often come to some solution. So my own experience, even in the army in the last 8 to 10 years, we do operate at a political level, political military. My personal experience has been, but I must say it's different from civil services because they're in the states and all, it is far more intimate. The politician, as I said for the reasons I gave you, is equally cognizant of good civil service, whom he will want for specific jobs. My impression is to the contrary. Many of us wish to curry political favor for all kinds of reasons. And that political favor sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't work. When it goes against you, then you start complaining. I'm not saying this is the norm, but largely. It is just like human interaction. You know straight-talking people, you know clever people, you know all kinds of people. You establish your equations accordingly. So, my advice is, if you wish to dedicate your life in the civil service or in the government service, there is so much I told me. This political bit tends to get overemphasized. It is just 1% of the rest of the stuff. If you are a bureaucrat who, now all these domains that I told you, is it easy to deliver? You can pass one exam, that's not good enough. You have to master therefore. For example, if you go to the Ministry of Defense, national security is vastly more complex and sophisticated. But if you are a master of your wares, that one time made, sell your brain and brawn to the highest bidder, it's not in the market sense. Everybody wants good talent. If you have advice to offer, you will always be soft. You must create a distinct niche for yourself. So I am not denying the existence of politics, but I am equally saying that amid all the political contestation, and there will be contestation of BJP, there will be vigorous fights, the honest civil servant can still not only survive but also thrive. That would be my answer.
One last question, please.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Abhijay. Sir, like you mentioned that in the coming time, ChatGPT will take over the world, and it is performing. It will boost its IQ skills will be much more higher than the humans. But sir, if we see the trend in India, like most of the majority of the youths are still into preparing for government services and going into that, but not going into startups and the data science, which will be evolving and which will make India, which will help India to achieve the Viksit Bharat aim that is being set by the government. So sir, what can be done by the leaders at the top or the government of India so that the shift from the government services and all that changes to its startups and data science so that youth can get into that and contribute to the Viksit Bharat rather than just preparing for the government services and going into that?
So there are 3-4 things. One is I continue to say that the civil servants also need time. So here I will disagree with Mr. Sanford when he says it's a waste of time or something like that. It's certainly not a waste of time. Why shouldn't the cabinet secretary be one of the most brilliant people in the country? Why should your service chief be one of the most accomplished? See what's happening in Israel today. If you didn't have a good chief of defense there, he can't be a mediocre. So talent is required in all walks of life, just as it is required in what you are saying, the field of entrepreneurs and all this. So it's a combination of government inducements and your personal beliefs. So of course government will give inducements, which it has given in the recent past. And today there are startups, at least the world I know of defense, it's exploding. There are other challenges. For example, we have so many IITs. A lot of these IITs are into startups. But most of these IITs I observe are into these internet apps. These Swiggy, these are not in deep technologies of the future. So they need to get startups of that kind. And ultimately these are personal choices. I mean, Elon Musk was not led by the US government. He fought the US government at every stage. You see today what he has done. When I was growing up, space was a country thing. It was an exclusive club of countries. India, Soviet Union, USA. This man, by sheer entrepreneurial skills and his brilliance, has made what was a country thing a company thing. Today, US Spaceport is partnering not with NASA, not with Boeing Lockheed, but with Elon Musk. See how they have startups have changed the game in Ukraine. The game, there is an AI there, a company called Helsing. It's become a unicorn in these 3 years. The day the Ukraine conflict broke out, there was another AI company called Palantir, Palantir. The CEO went to Zelensky and said, just give me all your data in this, all that is happening, and I will give you all services for free. And he's today smartly taken that data, given services to Ukraine, and he's exporting AI-enabled products in deterrence and war fighting to the world. He's making billions. Now this kind of stuff, no matter what, government will never be able to put in by policy. It has to come from free-thinking, free-spirited entrepreneurs. There are numerous trends. I am told in the Japanese civil service, today people are leaving civil service, which is very committed just like India, and going into the world of startups. Now these are societal trends. अभी तक जो मैंने देखा है, the civil services are still pretty short form. We have 11 lakh aspirants and about 1,000 get through. But certainly we need people in other domains, and there are many people going to those other domains. So the sum and substance of what I say is that today India is a land of great excitement and opportunity. Be conscious of all these other things, whatever was being raised, but concentrate on the positivity. There is so much that can be accomplished on the positivity. These kind of, when I was looking for a career, there were 4 professions: defense, civil services, कोई रेलवे का एग्जाम हो सकता है, one or more. Get the canvas before you people try. So, like civil services, need time. Every place needs time.